Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. We're here today with Steve Chipman, the president and CEO of the Birchwood Automotive Group, representing about 22 dealerships out of Manitoba. Now, Steve, it's a lot of dealerships to deal with, a lot of different OEMs, and a lot of different people. How are you dealing with it, the COVID pandemic out your way?
Thanks for having me. Relatively speaking, as good as can be expected. It's been a challenge. It's been interesting. It's making us better. We've had to make some hard decisions, but in Manitoba, we've been a little bit lucky in the sense that we're the last province really to be affected by it. We're right in the middle of the country, and we're almost like an island here in Winnipeg. So the COVID disease is just coming into Winnipeg. We're up to about 200 cases now, just kind of surged the last week. So we've had a chance to see what other people are doing across the country and what they're doing in other countries so we can prepare for it better.
Well, one thing, I was on your website earlier and I noticed you've got some good messaging to your customers, including a video from yourself where you're speaking to customers about COVID and new protocols. And on top of that, you've implemented some immediate measures and changes to the website, sort of a buy from home program and contactless delivery, this kind of thing. So tell us a bit about the thinking that went into some of that.
Well, it's always kind of been there. We've had this buy from home program for 4 or 5 years now on used cars. And we've been trying to integrate it into a new car program. The problem with the new car program, we're a group and have a website like that, is all the different various manufacturer programs and trying to integrate everything in together. We're close, and I wish I had about another 3 months, and I think would be a much better position, but we've used that. In fact, as of Wednesday night, today's Tuesday morning, I guess, as of Wednesday tomorrow night, we're closing our showrooms. We've got them locked down now, so you can only get in by appointment. You can't walk into any of our dealerships. You have to phone. There's a number on the door, and someone will come and let you in. But as of Wednesday, just to concern safety for our staff, for spread of the disease, we're closing our showrooms. And we saw it happen last week in Ontario, and we're just following that lead. I think we should get ahead of this. As I said, I've been saying to people, look, Manitoba should have the least amount of COVID disease in the whole country, because we should learn from everybody else and follow best practices as soon as possible. So that's a page we've been working on. It's there, and as of close the business tomorrow, that's the only way you can be able to have an appointment, or not even an appointment, to contact our sales department is through that website.
Well, you mentioned actually the other dealers. We were talking earlier. You mentioned you've been in contact with them right across the country. Not that many years ago, you were the chairman of CAD. I'm sure you made lots of contacts across the country. So you've heard from other dealers from the East Coast to the West Coast about how they're coping. What are some of the pain points and the ideas they're coming up with?
Well, yeah, and it was a great experience being the chair of CADA, and it allowed me to make those contacts. And being involved with dealer councils too, you get a close group of friends, and they become your friends. They're in a sense, and so it's easy to reach out for them, and they were all prepared to offer me good advice. But it's really about making sure you're looking after your people. That's the toughest point I think people are finding is the looking after their people. They want to make sure that their staff is healthy, and they've got some sort of income to look after their families. So that's number one pain point. Number two is cash flow. I think people are really starting to understand the importance of cash flow, because once your business dries up like that, suddenly you've got a bunch of bills to pay, and the banks are giving you some concessions. The manufacturers are helping to a degree, but there's you go to your suppliers. There's all sorts of things we need to think about in cash flow management. So that's another thing we think about. And then how do you reach out to customers? Be the third point, because the issue is, I think, I don't know if customers are ready, in a sense, for us to give them an offer. We're here, we're open. If you need a car, someone's going to have an accident, or engine's going to blow up, or something's going to happen, and they're going to need a car. And same with service. We're open for service. We've stayed open around about half staff for that, and we have a real protocol of how to keep our drive-throughs. In fact, right now, we're not letting people, service customers, into our buildings anymore. Our service advisors are meeting them outside. They're greeting them there. We shut down our shuttle vans. Customers being picked up by a family member. It's worked. It's just some things that make it made us jump a little quicker. I think we're a little ahead of the game here in Manitoba, the other dealers, because of the ability to talk to others, people in other provinces, and see what's going on.
The other thing is some of these protocols that you're putting in place now, sort of just during the crisis, are in sort of crisis mode where people are just adapting to the new way of doing business just to get through this. And I think coming into the recovery, some of this will have a more lasting impact, and just in terms of some customers are going to want to interact in a different way. So I guess you're probably already keeping in mind, what does this look like going forward beyond just the short-term crisis of getting through this? So I guess your dealership groups, you must be working on some plans, if you will, in the longer term.
That's the thing that's going to come out of this. That's I'd like to call it the silver lining. I think we've, over time, the last 10 years, we've been relatively successful in the car business. Most people have, and we've been growing, and we've been adding people, but we've really been adding people sometimes is like a people bandage to a process problem. So as we look back and scale back here now, we're starting to analyze, well, what are these people doing? What's the process? What do we need to do? I think that there's a lot's going to change. And you're right. We're just now getting to the stage where we're starting to think ahead of what's possible. Like, I know I've spent the last 3 weeks, it seems to me, on a Zoom call or a Microsoft team call almost every day, either through dealer council. We're now meeting regularly with all our general managers and all our directors. About 30 of us get on the phone every day at 4 o'clock. That wasn't a protocol before, but for 15 minutes, here's a quick update. That may be something we carry on going forward. But then where's opportunity? Because there's going to be opportunities coming out of this. I think the car business, in due course, I think there's people who aren't going to want to who aren't going to want to use public transit. I think there's a whole group of subset of people in the economy who've been driving transit and now realize, hey, I don't know if I want to be on a bus anymore with another 125 people jammed in there. So there's an opportunity there.
Well, we had an interview, interesting, with Dennis DeRosier, and he talked a bit about ride-sharing programs. And, there was obviously a growth curve, and there was sort of a threat or opportunity for dealers, depending how you look at it. But he was saying, similarly, how many people are going to want to get in a pooled Uber, cab at this point in time? Probably not that many, right? So.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, like, I use Uber when I travel. I'm thinking, should I just rent a car now? Would that be, for the extra, there's a little more money, but is it safer for me to rent a car? Then it might be a little more convenient sometimes than to use Uber, or use a taxi, or use the train from the Toronto airport to downtown Toronto.
The other thing, Steve, you mentioned earlier, we're having 22 OEMs or franchises. That's a lot of OEM communications. We talked earlier about how overwhelming it is to have this flood of information. But how have the OEMs been during this in terms of communicating to you expectations, maybe reduced targets for inventory, whatever it is? I mean, how have they been at sort of keeping you in the loop about their own plans? So I'm sure it's evolving over time too.
Yeah, it has been, and it's incessant. I'm with all these different brands we have. I'm getting my email box is filling up. It's tough for me to keep up with it. But I think the communication is really good. I think they've been really working hard. Different people have different methodologies. Some use a video, some send out an email. But there seems to be constant communication. I know that all the dealer communication teams for the various brands that we're involved with, I'm involved directly with 3, but the other ones are all meeting regularly. There's updates. They're looking for insights. And they've got questions too, because I don't think anyone really knows where the numbers are. And we start asking, well, what's your sales projection for the next 3 months? And you kind of look at, well, they've cut so much inventory. The factories are shut down. Where's that supply chain going to look like coming out of this? How do we ramp back up if there's no cars in the pipeline? So it's going to be an interesting time. But I would say that my experience is that all the manufacturers have been reaching out, and great communication.
It just was one last thing, Steve. I think a lot of dealers are going to become much more aware of their numbers through this. They're going to become operators. I mean, they're already, very aware of, the numbers, but, right down to that you mentioned earlier, metric, a cost per day to stay open and things like that, because it's something you don't normally calculate in the day-to-day when you're just in the cycle of selling and servicing vehicles. But I think some of those analytics and those numbers will be interesting for dealers as they come out of this. to maybe pare down maybe some non-essential aspects that you can see in your day-to-day operations, and just try to come out a bit leaner, I guess, particularly during the recovery, where it's going to take a while for the market to fully rebound. It won't be like a overnight sensation.
I remember 9/11, and I remember 08, 09. We lost a couple of dealerships. We had a couple of GM dealerships that were closed, and the challenges then, and we all trimmed back, and then we grew. And the tendency is, as I said, if you got a problem somewhere, don't worry about the process. Just throw a person at it, and they'll solve the problem. So that's going to be an issue for sure. I think we're going to save expense just on travel. I don't think there's going to be the need to travel as much, because people have gotten used to now to using Zoom meetings. As I say, I'm a dealer counsel. So why do I need to fly to Toronto every second or third month for a meeting? We can just do it, seem to be effectively, with a medium like this.
All right. Well, on that note, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule for a meeting like this, because we're really trying to connect dealers with other dealers across country to share their ideas, and you've shared lots of great insights with us today. So thanks for that, Steve.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, and wash your hands.
I will do.
Okay.
Signing off.